On the competition ground, Jason naturally had no time to worry about the surprise of the audience below as he walked on the competition ground. Wherever he went, the arena beneath Jason's feet suddenly collapsed, rock fragments scattered in all directions, and then were smashed into powder under the terrifying lightning. Thor, is this what you call the name of the god of thunder? But error, if you have any other tricks, just use them. This kind of child's trick, if used, will make people laugh. Jason said. Jongao shouted, and the sound rumbled into the ears of all the audience present. In fact, Jason still feels that Thor's thunder god possession is quite powerful. If he hadn't perfected his body skills in the trial space of the phantom world in the Twin Towers, any trace of the surrounding the movements can be clearly sensed. I am afraid that under the opponent's strange attack, Jason can only use the terrifying energy attack to find the opponent, which is a stupid way. If this is the case, a large number of attacks will quickly consume the spiritual power in Jason's body. But now, with Jason's perfect body and sword skills, no matter how fast Thor is or how stealthy he is, he can't hurt Jason at all. Below, the audience looked at this scene in stunned silence. In the last game, Thor relied on this move to defeat a 7th-level low-level Emperor Spirit Master genius. However, in Jason's words, this thunder god possession became the tricks of playing house with children and making people laugh and being generous shocked the surrounding audience. Especially in the crowd, the 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master who was defeated by Thor using this move in the last game was also there. He also wanted to see where Thor could go after he defeated him. Now that he heard Jason's words made him so ashamed that he almost vomited blood. But despite the shock in their hearts, no one felt the slightest discomfort with Jason's arrogance. On the competition field, Jason's gesture of easily blocking Thor's attack made others understand that this continental elite competition, the biggest dark horse in the world, has such arrogant capital. Boom! Amidst the roar of thunder, countless electric lights lingered, and then condensed into a human figure. On the other side of the arena, Thor's expression was cold, and his eyes were reddish, showing the anger in his heart. "You brat, since you want to die, don't blame me for not warning you," Thor said coldly, and at the same time an indescribable pressure suddenly rose up in the arena. Buzz, the spiritual power trembled, and a golden spiritual ring once again floated from Thor's head. At the same time, the shadow of a terrifying giant beast wrapped with lightning appeared above Thor's head. This is a terrifying giant beast that is several meters high and more than 10 meters long. It is covered with complex patterns and has a soaring horn on its head, giving people an unspeakable pressure. "The 5th-level Spirit Beast King, the Thunder Prison Beast," someone in the crowd exclaimed. Although this Thunder Hell Beast is a 5th-level spiritual beast, in terms of strength, it is not inferior even to a 6th-level spiritual beast. How did Thor absorb its spiritual heart? The 5th-level Thunder Prison Beast is the king among 5th-level spiritual beasts. It possesses extremely powerful strength. Even 6th-level spiritual beasts are generally not its opponents and are extremely rare on the mainland. Seeing the spirit ring of the Thunder Hell Beast, the 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master below, who had a duel with Thor in the previous battle, suddenly turned pale. He knew that in the last duel between Thor and him, he actually didn't use his full strength at all, but he was easily defeated by the opponent. A deep sense of frustration continued to rise in his heart. Rise. The phantom of the Thunder Hell Beast appeared, and for a moment, the spiritual elements in the entire world became violent. Crackling. Terrifying lightning burst out from Thor's body. Huge arcs of electricity scattered irregularly and hit the competition ground, leaving terrifying cracks several feet deep on the competition ground. "If you surrender now, it's still too late. Otherwise, if you die by then, it will be none of my business," Thor snorted coldly. Feeling the terrifying spiritual power emanating from Thor, Jason's face not only showed no timidity, but showed a look of expectation. The black heavy sword in his hand shook slightly, pointed to the ground, and said with expectation on his face, "Come on, I want to see what kind of tricks you have." This Jason, was he beaten before? "Are you stupid?" Seeing Jason's nonchalant look on the fighting field, the audience below were dumbfounded. You know, most battles between players are about you going back and forth and attacking each other. After all, in a battle, the attacking side has an advantage over the defending side. Often as long as the other side is not paying attention and is injured by the attack, then the other side will be. There are great advantages. However, this Jason has been passively defensive since the beginning of the battle and has never taken the initiative to attack. Now that Thor has used the terrifying 5th-level spirit ring of the Thunder Hell Beast, this Jason is still standing there stupidly. There, waiting for the opponent to attack. This scene suddenly made everyone full of confusion. Does this Jason want to exhaust the spiritual power in Thor's body, and then imitate the first game, and then defeat the opponent with one blow? Isn't this too idiotic? Lenovo to the last game, Jason has been defense, the final explosive performance. Many spectators present looked at Jason on the fighting field with idiotic eyes. This is like a life-and-death duel between two gunmen. One gunman only cares about dodging and waits until the bullets in the other's gun are used up before taking action. Such behavior is unintentionally extremely idiotic. Humph. Seeing Jason's indifferent expression, Thor's eyes suddenly burst into light, and he snorted coldly, "Since you don't admit defeat, then don't blame me for being rude." After the words fell, infinite spiritual power rushed out of his body and was poured into the thunder hammer in his hand. Then, a blue light suddenly shot up from the thunder hammer, and the terrifying spiritual power shot up into the sky like a wave. It rose up, forming a blue thunder column, and disappeared directly into the dark clouds above. The profound and obscure formations circulated in this world, and the spiritual energy elements in the entire competition field seemed to have stagnated at this moment, so suppressed that people almost fainted. However, Thor ignored Jason in front of him, continuously inputting his spiritual power into the thunder hammer, and then rushed into the clouds in the sky. What is this? What is this Thor going to do? Everyone was shocked and didn't understand what Thor was doing. On the competition ground, Jason's eyes lit up, and he looked to the sky with expectation. Countless black clouds were piling up there, giving people an extremely terrifying feeling. I originally planned to use this move in the subsequent battles, but I didn't expect you to force it out so early. Although you are about to lose, I have to say that you are very strong. Thor's face was cold and solemn. The mystery of thunder, the natural disaster of Thunder Prison. As time passed, the giant hammer held high in Thor's hand seemed to be holding a mountain. His whole body trembled slightly, and he let out a loud roar in his mouth, and at the same time, he lifted the hammer in his hand. The giant hammer came down hard. Rumble. The terrifying spiritual power spread across the sky and the earth, and with an explosion, a blue thunderbolt as thick as a bucket, like a winding dragon, slammed down from the crowded clouds in the sky. Come, light up the entire competition field, aim at Jason on the competition field, and shoot down like lightning. This is Sky Thunder. This Thor actually summoned the Sky Thunder, Thunder-type spiritual master. It's too scary, too scary. Seeing this situation, all the spectators present couldn't help but be shocked. The change, like a terrifying scene, also attracted the attention of the entire competition field. Faced with such a terrifying thunder, under the astonished gazes of all the spectators, Jason sat cross-legged in the center of the arena, with his black épée across his knees, waiting for the thunder to land. A huge roar sounded, and under the terrifying pressure of spiritual power, the bucket-thick blue thunder fell from the sky and struck Jason directly. Endless lightning filled the air, and blue electric snakes suddenly swam across the entire competition field. In everyone's surprised eyes, Jason closed his eyes tightly, and he actually forcefully carried the previous thunder down. Impossible. Not far away, Thor said with shock on his face. However, after withstanding a thunderbolt, Jason did not move at all. He still sat there quietly, as if waiting for the second thunderbolt to come. What is Jason doing? Sitting there stupidly, waiting for lightning to strike? Many people were confused when they saw Jason's actions. You are seeking death yourself, Thor roared angrily, constantly activating the spiritual power in his body. A huge roar of rumble resounded in the sky, and countless silver electric snakes were swimming in the clouds. Such a terrifying sight attracted even Tim and many other strong men from the Twin Towers. Past. When the second thunder struck, it was no longer a single thunder and lightning, but turned into a silver-blue ocean. It was a sea of thunder. Endless thunder and lightning landed on the competition ground, drowning Jason and Thor instantly. The entire competition ground was a vast blue. This was a sea of thunder and lightning, which was extremely terrifying. Oh my God! All the surrounding spectators couldn't help but retreat. Although every competition arena was restricted by the masters of the Twin Towers, there would be no thunder and lightning at all, but such a terrifying scene, it still made everyone feel terrified and their whole bodies could not help but tremble. The sky thunder is the power of the heaven and the earth. It was like a terrifying sky thunder before. I am afraid that even a 7th-level Imperial Spiritual Master will not be able to withstand a few hits. Jason, if you don't surrender quickly, I'm afraid he will die on this competition ground. Outside the competition arena, all the spectators looked at Jason in the center of the competition arena, with fear on their faces. On the side, the referee from the Twin Towers already had a solemn look on his face. He was just waiting for Jason to shout surrender before rushing onto the court to save people. However, in the competition field, the audience with good eyesight discovered that Jason was like a rock in the sea of thunder, sitting cross-legged in the center of the competition field, motionless, as if he had turned into a fossil. What on earth is this Jason doing? Everyone was frightened. They couldn't see through Jason's behavior while everyone was extremely shocked. On the martial arts field, Jason felt that there was no need to hit his body, but a smile appeared on the corner of Jason's mouth. Thunder is a magical force naturally produced between heaven and earth. It possesses extremely powerful special power. However, what everyone does not know is that in addition to its extremely powerful attack properties, strong electric current can also stimulate the body and improve physical strength. In his previous life, the violent spiritual master school that Jason was familiar with had a special technique called Sky Thunder Body Forging that relied on the power of thunder and lightning to increase physical strength. Jason, who was not even a first-level low-level spiritual disciple in his previous life, was able to train his physical strength to the 9th-level holy level. In addition to taking a large number of genius exotic treasures and spiritual potions that can increase physical strength, he also practiced this set. Heavenly Thunder Body Forging is a technique. This Heavenly Thunder Body training is just like its name. The most effective way is to use the power of thunder tribulation to exercise the body. The second is to use the power of heavenly thunder, and the thunder and lightning of ordinary thunder attribute spiritual masters. The power also has a certain effect, but the effect is not as effective as the previous two. Although thunder attribute spiritual masters are extremely rare on the mainland, due to Jason's status in the previous life, he wanted to find a thunder attribute spiritual master who could trigger the sky thunder, and it is not a difficult task, and there are many ways to induce thunder tribulation. However, in this life, it is not that easy for Jason to find a lightning attribute spiritualist. Nowadays, it is rare to see one on the competition stage. Jason naturally took up the idea of the other party. But generally speaking, only those who have reached the level of 7th order Imperial spiritual masters can have a training effect on the human body with the power of thunder and lightning they release. Even though he is capable of inducing sky thunder, the power of thunder and lightning possessed by a 6th-level senior spiritual master is still too weak. Of course, Jason just wanted to give Thor a try, but he didn't expect that the opponent's strength was far beyond his expectation, and he actually aroused Tianlei. Jason, who was ecstatic in his heart, immediately sat there cross-legged and gathered the spiritual power in his body. When the thunder came, he introduced the power of the thunder and lightning that hit him into his body, and then ran the thunder body forging. Kung Fu, nourish your body and improve your physical strength. Boom! Endless dark clouds piled up in the sky, and the low dark clouds dimmed the light over the entire Lingdo city. The wind roared between the sky and the earth, and the silver snakes danced wildly. Thunder and lightning continued to fall from the sky, covering the competition field. The figures of Jason and Thor. This is a vast ocean of lightning, with lightning surging below, thunder like a tide, shattering everything, extremely blazing. There is a vast blue sky between the sky and the earth. Concubine. The thunder almost pierces people's eardrums, crushing people's souls, connecting the sky and the earth. The momentum is extremely vast, like the Milky Way pouring down from the 9 heavens, making people feel frightened. This is the powerful force of nature. Even a 7th-level imperial spiritual master who can communicate with the spiritual power of heaven and earth and incarnate spiritual elements cannot show such power. The void seemed to be exploded, and there were bursts of huge explosions in the air, but soon you will be overwhelmed by endless thunder waves, because the thunder light is too blazing. The dazzling thunder and lightning fills every inch of space. Boom, the thunder shocked the world, blue lightning surged like a tide. This is a world of thunder and lightning, which can almost destroy everything. The surrounding audience was frightened and horrified. It stands to reason that such a terrifying power of heaven and earth, with 6 the body of a high-level spiritual master, cannot bear it at all, but Jason and Thor in the competition field have subverted everyone's ideas. Fortunately, Thor is the guide of the sky thunder, and as a thunder attribute spiritual master, he may have the secret method to resist the sky thunder, but Jason's ability to survive in it makes everyone puzzled. On the competition field, Jason sat like a rock, and thunder came to the world and kept hitting him, but it could not be wiped out, which shocked everyone. Even from a distance, it was so terrifying. It is difficult for people to imagine what Jason in the Sea of Thunder is going through. Thinking of what kind of disaster, they all widened their eyes and stared at the competition field not far away. What on earth is this Jason doing? He doesn't fight back or surrender. He just waits stupidly for the lightning strike. My dear, this Jason's body is too powerful. The thunder failed to kill him, it's incredible. With Jason's spiritual power level, he should not be able to withstand the attack of the sky thunder and instantly turn into ashes. Everyone was filled with fear, and many people exclaimed in surprise. He spoke out with deep confusion. If Jason activated the secret technique to strengthen his own defense and try his best to resist the thunder attack, everyone might still understand, but Jason in the competition field sat there quietly, without using any spiritual skills, or even the spiritual protection on the surface of the body was missing. Even though the sky lightning struck him, he was unscathed, which made everyone feel unbelievable. The blue sea of thunder flooded the competition field, representing the will of heaven and earth, which can obliterate all living creatures in the world. It makes one's soul tremble uncontrollably. Jason was like an old monk sitting in the sea of thunder. Thunderho as thick as a bucket hit him, and electric snakes flowed around his body. He closed his eyes tightly. The spiritual power converges, absorbs the power of thunder, circulates, exercises the body with thunder, and cleanses the physical body. The thunder continuously washes away at him, and the cells in Jason's body are constantly destroyed, and then he is reborn, baptized by thunder. Below, it continues to grow and take on new life. However, it was fine at first. As time went by, Jason's body, which was as powerful as an 8th-level intermediate emperor spiritual master, gradually became unable to withstand the power of thunder that continued to pour into his body. Boom! Another thunderbolt as thick as a bucket hit Jason, and Jason's skin and flesh were suddenly torn apart. His body was charred black, and blood was flowing, and he suffered unimaginable damage. Although he was severely injured, his vitality and blood were soaring. Without a trace of stubbornness, instead glowing with an unspeakable spirit. This Jason, not far away, Tim, Coughlin and others were all shocked and said, different from the ordinary audience. With his strength, it was natural to see that Jason was resisting completely with his physical body. However, after seeing it, Tim and the others were even more puzzled than ordinary people. They all understood how powerful the thunder was. Even the 7th level Emperor Spirit Master can be killed. If they just rely on if it were to be resisted, even the body of a 9th level low-level Holy Spirit Master like Tim could not be said to be able to withstand the renewal. However, this Jason was able to bear it completely with his body. Such a powerful body made them all unable to withstand it. He was extremely shocked. This Jason's body is too terrifying. Everyone was horrified. If they were ordinary people, they would be turned into ashes when a thunder and lightning came down, but he was fighting in a sea of blue thunder. Boom! Another wave of thunder, extremely fierce, buried Jason below, and no one knew how many thunder and lightning struck him. Bright red blood splashed everywhere, and bones rattled. What surprised everyone was that Jason was not chopped into pieces. His body was pitch black and blood was flowing. His skin was torn to pieces, but he did not have the slightest thought of surrender or retreat. He endured it all and still stood in the sea of thunder, unyielding. Unconscious. This friend is terrible. Monster, you are really a monster. Even if you are struck by lightning, you will not be destroyed. What a pervert. No one here could calm down, and they were all screaming in shock. Just when everyone was frightened, suddenly an unspeakable energy was transmitted from Jason's body on the competition field. The terrifying life essence, like a ray of smoke, rose into the sky from the top of Jason's head, appearing particularly clear in the sea of thunder in the sky. Under everyone's shocked eyes, Jason's closed eyes suddenly opened on the competition field, and then he stood up straight. On the competition field, Jason clearly felt that his physical strength was constantly improving. Even being promoted to intermediate spiritual master and senior spiritual master could not improve his physical body. In this day of thunder and thunder, Tion Thunderforged body, under the operation of the technique, the body of the 8th level intermediate emperor level slowly advanced to the 8th level advanced level, and then, it hit the peak of the 8th level. But at the same time, he also felt that when the strength reached the 8th level peak, no matter how the thunder bombarded the body and operated with the thunder, his physical strength no longer improved at all. Instead, it was constantly destroyed by the thunder's attacks. I know that the thunder caused by Thor, who is a 6th level senior spiritual master, can only temper his body to this extent. If it continues, the thunder will only cause constant damage to the body, and he would not improve it in the slightest. He stood up, holding a black heavy sword, and slowly walked towards Thor on the other side of the competition field amidst the thunder and endless sea of thunder. Now that the physical body has been improved, there is no need to continue the competition. Jason is ready to end the competition quickly. On the other side of the competition field, Thor holds the thunder hammer high in his hand. He looks at the walking in the thunder in horror. Jason's eyes widened. Boom, boom, boom. Before Jason could take 2 steps, a series of subtle explosions suddenly came from the other side of the competition field. On the other side of the competition field, there were constant. He instilled the spiritual power in his body into the thunder hammer, and then rushed into the clouds in the sky, triggering the thunder, and suddenly a ball of blood burst out from Thor's body. Wow! His face was pale. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. The hands holding the thunder hammer in the air slowly dropped down, and his whole body suddenly collapsed on the ground. His whole body was twitching, and traces of blood kept pouring out of his mouth. M.O. The previous long-term use of thunder prison natural disaster almost consumed all the spiritual power in his body. Finally, his body could not bear it anymore and suffered the backlash of spiritual power. Without Thor's maintenance, the endless thunder, the sea quickly disappeared, the clouds and the sky slowly dispersed, and the sky became bright again. Under the stage, the leader of Thor's force rushed to the competition field, took out a bottle of elixir from his body and poured it into Thor's mouth. Nourished by the elixir, Thor, who fell on the competition field, finally stopped. He suffered a convulsion and was carried down. On the competition field, Jason looked at the referee not far away with an innocent face. The referee suddenly came back to his senses and shouted, Thor number 15 was injured and left the field. Jason number 1 wins. What is going on? Is this how Jason wins this game? Listening to the referee's announcement, everyone in the audience looked at each other in shock. Throughout the entire game, Jason had been passively defensive and never took the initiative to attack once. However, just like that, he won the final victory. On the contrary, Thor, who had been attacking, was exhausted and seriously injured and withdrew from the game. This result made many people so depressed that they almost vomited blood. Everyone present had their eyes widened and their mouths opened wide. Such a dramatic ending made it difficult for the audience to accept it. Jason, who was covered in burnt black and bloody, took advantage of this opportunity after the referee announced the victory. He secretly left the scene. He did not hide the injuries on his body, but showed that they were more serious than he was. In this era, when violent spiritual masters have not yet appeared, Jason did not want to show too much attention to the physical body. Although many people have noticed that his physical strength is astonishing, his appearance of pretending to be seriously injured can still prevent his weird physical body from being too at the forefront. In less than half a day, the third round of competition came to a successful end. What was different from the previous round was that at the end of this round, almost 80% of the players and the public were talking about Jason and Thomas. In the last round of the game, although Jason also showed amazing strength, Orleans is not the top player after all, which only shows that Jason's strength is not weak. But in this game they all understand the horror of Jason. Many 7th level Imperial spiritual masters who saw the battle between Jason and Thor looked back and imagined what the ending would be like if they were the ones standing on the stage with Thor. How about it? Thinking of the scene that made people feel horrified and filled with thunder and lightning, many veteran 7th level masters of the Imperial spiritual master shook their heads. Even they could not guarantee that they could survive the bombardment of that terrifying sky thunder. Remaining undefeated. Although Thor lost to Jason in the game, after this battle, his reputation spread far and wide. Many people asserted that the terrifying scene that caused the thunder if Thor's opponent is not Jason, except for Clark and a few other strongest players, all the other players including more than a dozen 7th level low-level Imperial spiritual masters, will not be able to escape the outcome of being eliminated when they encounter Thor. Of course, this is just what some people think, but it is recognized by most people. And Jason's name has completely spread throughout Spirit Doe City. Those players and people who have passed the second round and are still clamoring for Jason cheating in the trial space are collectively shut down. He started talking. Master, Claire lost. In the northwest residential area, Claire said with a frustrated face, while Dinish's face was also extremely heavy. In this round, among the 4 players from the northwest, both Claire and Dinisha were eliminated. Both of them were very unfortunate. Claire met the highest-ranked player in this competition and was also the champion. The most popular candidate is Clark, a 7th level senior Imperial spiritual master in the Cairo Empire. Master, that Clark is too strong. Claire has tried very hard, but she is no match for him, Claire said with tears in her eyes. She didn't have any injuries on her body, but she felt disappointed in her heart. But it is extremely deep. Facing such a powerful opponent, even though Claire fought hard, she still lost the game without any suspense. With Claire's current strength, even if she faced a genius at the level of a 7th level low-level Emperor spiritual master, he was also capable of fighting, but when facing Clark, a 7th level senior Imperial spiritual master, he was eliminated before he could even fully exert his own strength. And Dinisha, from the Lubanar Kingdom, it was also extremely unfortunate that she met Leonardo, a 7th level intermediate phantom spiritual master from the Salem Empire. This Leonardo is so scary. In the hall, facing everyone's gaze, Dinisha's face turned pale. Until now, Dinisha still has lingering fears when she thinks of the previous game. 5 minutes, just 5 minutes I was defeated. Dinisha shook her head and spoke. 5 minutes? Temujin frowned deeply, with a solemn look on his face, Dini Shah, your strength is not weak, how could you be eliminated in 5 minutes? Besides, Jason also focused his attention on Dini Shah. Jason also knew something about Dinish's strength, because he was familiar with her as a spiritual master and spiritual medicine master in the Lubanar kingdom. After solving the doubts, Dinish's understanding of the laws of the wind system has made great progress. In the past 6 months of hard training, her strength has already improved by leaps and bounds, and is slightly higher than the original Adkins. However, with such strength, Leonardo was unable to hold on for 5 minutes, which made Jason feel quite curious. Facing the doubtful looks of everyone, Dini Shah shook her head and said with a wry smile on her face, "Everyone, you don't know, Leonardo's strength is too terrifying, especially his illusions, which are hard to guard against. It affects people's spirit and consciousness. I didn't see how he moved at all. I was trapped in the illusion. When I woke up, I was already in the competition field, and I didn't even know how to lose. And I estimate that Leonardo didn't use all his strength when he attacked me. I only saw his 1st to 4th level spiritual rings. With the strength of his 7th level intermediate imperial spiritual master, he shouldn't only have 4. Spiritual ring." On the side, Xuanfeng nodded solemnly, "Jason, Temujin. Now among our contestants in the northwest, you two are the only ones left. I watched the game between Dini Shah and Leonardo's spirit the ring combination is extremely powerful. The 1st level spiritual ring is the spiritual heart of the 1st level spiritual beast, the fearful phantom demon. The 2nd level spiritual ring is the spiritual heart of the 2nd level spiritual beast, the phantom spiritual beast. The 3rd level spiritual ring is the spiritual heart of the 3rd level spiritual beast. The spiritual heart of the fearful phantom demon. The 4th level spiritual ring is the spiritual heart of the 4th level nightmare beast, the fearful phantom demon." After hearing what Xuanfeng said about Leonardo's spirit ring, Jason touched his nose and was immediately speechless. "Well, it's the fear phantom." Xuanfeng glanced at Jason, thinking he was surprised by Leonardo's spirit ring. He nodded and said, "This fear phantom is an extremely terrifying spiritual beast. It is extremely rare on the mainland. The power of this fear illusory demon is that when it casts the fear illusion, it can affect a trace of the spiritual master's soul, which is extremely difficult to resist. I don't know how Leonardo got this." After that, Xuanfeng explained, Leonardo's 4 spirit rings are absorbed very reasonably. Among them, the 1st level fear phantom monster specifically affects the human spirit, and the 2nd level phantom spirit beast can improve the spiritual master's ability. The mental power belongs to the auxiliary category. The 3rd level 3-headed phantom fear demon is the king of phantom fear demons, which can make people fall into fear invisibly. The 4th level nightmare beast can make people fall into endless nightmares. The combination of these 4 spiritual rings, coupled with Leonardo's own illusion skills, is enough to make the 7th level low-level imperial spiritual master fall into an illusion without knowing it, and he is unable to resist. If the spiritual masters, it's okay if you have a strong will. If you don't have a strong will, it is simply difficult to resist. Moreover, there is a huge gap in resisting illusions depending on the level of the spiritual master. Having said this, Xuanfeng looked at Jason with a solemn face. "Jason, you are a 6th level advanced spiritual master. Your mental power is not strong enough, so you need to pay special attention when facing Leonardo. It is best to guard your mind and launch a powerful attack on him in an instant so that he cannot concentrate to release the powerful illusion. Otherwise, once he seizes the opportunity, let him release the powerful illusion. With your mental power and soul power, although you are extremely strong, you may be defeated by the opponent in an instant. You must remember this," Xuanfeng said with great solemnity, telling all his experience points. On the side, Tuale and others also nodded solemnly, agreeing very much with what Xuanfeng said. Looking at the concerned eyes of everyone in the hall, Jason touched his nose and said loudly, "Lord Xuanfeng, don't worry, if I encounter Leonardo in the competition field, I will pay attention." Xuanfeng and others all nodded. Now the next games are all very close. Facing this kind of phantom spiritual master in such a short period of time, apart from reminding the players to pay attention, there is nothing special. Method. After a brief exchange, all the players returned to their rooms, and Jason also treated himself. The injury that was struck by lightning seemed serious, but in fact it was not a serious injury. After a day off, the fourth round of the game started in full swing with everyone's expectations. This time, there are only 16 players left. After today, 8 more players will be eliminated. In the same competition venue, Jason and other 16 players stood together, while Tim and others stood in front of the players. Tim looked at the players in front of him with a smile, his eyes especially on Clark and a few others, including Jason. He paused for a moment, and then said, "Are you all ready for this fourth round of the arena competition?" "Ready," all the players responded loudly. Seeing the answers of the players, Tim and others nodded. Then a guardian came out from the Spiritual Master Tower and the Spiritual Medicine Master Tower each, and the drawing of lots began. Jason's opponent this time was ranked lower, ranked 29th. Jason glanced over, but couldn't help being stunned. Why is it such a coincidence, In the fourth round of the entire arena, the player Jason met was actually Kiros, the son of Sir Eludiba. After seeing Jason, Nikiros couldn't help but reveal a wry smile. The two looked at each other without speaking. They both walked out of the crowd and stood together, waiting for the end of the draw for all the players. Number 2, number 5. At this moment, the voices of the two guardians of the Twin Towers who drew lots came to Jason's ears, and the numbers reported by those two people were so close, it also made everyone focus on the crowd. Among the crowd, 2 figures slowly walked out. One of them is a young man in golden clothes. His long golden hair is tied behind his head. He is carrying a golden sword on his back. His face is expressionless. His whole person is like a giant sword unsheathed. A fierce momentum is rippling from him. When it comes out, people dare not look at it. It was Clark, the 7th-level senior Imperial Spiritual Master of the Cairo Empire, who was the highest level in this competition. The Qing Burian next to him was a young man wrapped in a black cloak. His eyes were strange, like a poisonous scorpion. One look at him would make people feel cold. This man is none other than the number 1 genius of the Dekrai family of the Kamikaze Empire, Livens, who is a 7th-level low-level dark element Imperial Spiritual Master. How come the two of them are facing each other? Then Li Fanzi is in danger. This Li Fanzi is also extremely strong. With the level of 7th-level low-level Emperor Spiritual Master, he has reached the 5th place and ranks among all 7th-level low-level Emperor Spiritual Masters. Among Spiritual Masters, Trial ranks first. If he hadn't met Clark, there shouldn't be any problem for Livens to break into the quarterfinals, but now, it's dangerous outside the venue. The audience waiting for the opening of the 4th round of the arena saw Livens and Clark. When they met, sighs came out of their mouths. In the first round of the mainland elite competition, Jason, a 6th-level senior spiritual master, ranked first with a 6th-level score, while Clark, a 7th-level senior imperial spiritual master, ranked first with a 7th-level score. Ranked second, the next third place is Sophia, the 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritualist on the 6th floor, and the 4th place is Leonardo, the 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritualist on the 6th floor. As for the 5th place is Lavanzi from the Kamikaze Empire, who beats all the other 7th-level low-level imperial spirit master players and ranks 5th. In the previous 2 rounds of battles, Lavanzi, who is a dark element, relied on his terrifying strength, easily defeated his opponents in the previous 2 rounds. In the minds of many viewers, they believed that Livens' real strength was enough to advance to the semifinals. But in this round, Livens, but now he met Clark. Everyone couldn't help but sigh for him. After all the players were drawn out, the 16 players present walked towards their respective arenas under the leadership of the Twin Towers staff. Jason and Kiros also walked towards their own competition ground. Just when they arrived in front of the competition ground, before Jason walked onto the competition ground, they saw hesitation on Kiros's face. He paused for a moment, then went straight to the referee and said, "Mr. Referee, I surrender this battle." Admit defeat? The referee couldn't help but be stunned. On the side, Jason also looked at Kiros in surprise. Kiros nodded affirmatively. "Yes, I admit defeat." The staff member of the Twin Towers asked curiously, "Submission without fighting, are you sure you have thought about it? This is a competition between geniuses. If you admit defeat, you will lose not only your own face, but also the face of your force. In a genius competition like this, even if the average player knows that he is not his opponent, he will go on stage to resist for a few times before surrendering, unlike Kiros, who surrenders before fighting. For a genius, such an embarrassing thing usually never happens." Kiros shook his head and said, "Then I know Jason's strength clearly. If you can't beat him, you can't beat him. There is nothing embarrassing about being defeated on the stage. It's better to admit defeat beforehand." Quillos watched Jason's 2 previous games. He knew very well that with his strength, he was no match for Jason. And compared to other players, Kiros knew Jason far better. He knows more than ordinary players. When Jason became famous in Chi'er province, Kilos inquired about Jason. After learning that Jason had given Cornhill, a 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master, to when he killed him, he was a 5th-level Senior Spiritual Master. Kiros was almost stunned. Now more than a year has passed, and Jason has been promoted to a 6th-level Senior Spiritual Master. When he saw after the terrifying strength shown by Jason in the first 2 games, Kiros, who had a deep understanding of his own strength, made such a decision. Seeing that Kiros was so sure, the referee had nothing to say and immediately came to Jason. Next to Sen, he said, "Jason, your opponent took the initiative to admit defeat. In this round, you automatically advance." After that, the referee also left the arena and returned to the venue to register the outcome of the game he was managing. "Kiros, this is not like you." After the referee left, Jason came to Kiros' side and said slowly. According to Jason's understanding of Kiros, with Kiros's character, even if he is stronger than him, Kiros doesn't look like someone who surrenders without a fight. But now Kiros's active surrender is Jason was quite confused. "Master Jace," Kiros said with a wry smile on his face, "I am not even your disciple, so how can I attack your master? When will I be promoted to the 7th level of low-level Emperor Spirit Master? I will be able to defeat you. After defeating your disciple, I will challenge you again." Speaking of this, Kiros had a trace of determination on his face, as if this goal would definitely be achieved. "My disciple?" Jason couldn't help but was stunned, and then said with a smile, "Loken, is he okay?" Hearing Kiros calling him Master Jace, Jason didn't deliberately explain it. "It's amazing. He is a pervert with terrifying strength. Every time I compete with him, no matter how much stronger I become, he can surpass me in strength and defeat me." At this point, Kiros almost bit his tongue. Teeth making noise. Because of Jason's relationship back then, the Phil family where Aretiba belongs and the Mori family of Loken have a very good relationship, and Loken and Kiros are both talented teenagers, so a competition is inevitable. However, between these two in the middle of the year, no matter how much Kiros improved his strength, he was still no match for Loken, which naturally made Kiros hate him. "Originally, I called him for this Continental Elite competition, but he said that you would not allow him to wander around until he was promoted to the 7th level Imperial Spirit Master, so he did not come." At this point, G. Ross couldn't help but sigh. If Loken also participated in this Continental Elite competition, with his strength, even if he faced Master Jace's opponent in the previous match, Thor, Loken might not lose. Unexpectedly, Kiros surrendered without a fight because of his disciple, Loken. When he thought of this, Jason couldn't help but want to laugh. After a brief chat with Kiros, Jason and Kiros walked towards the competition ground where Leonardo of the Salem Empire was. After hearing what Dini Shah and the others had said the day before yesterday, Jason was also full of curiosity about Leonardo, an illusory spiritual master with a spirit ring of fear of phantom demons. Jason and the others arrived at just the right time. When he and Kiros had just arrived at the competition ground where Leonardo was, the referee had just said start. The opponent Leonardo faced in this round was called Obi. He was a 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master with short brown hair. He was a fire spiritual master and ranked 10th in the trial space. 3. The strength is quite good. After the referee loudly shouted the game begins, the player immediately shouted loudly, and a scorching flame suddenly rose from his body, making the entire competition field red. At the same time, 2 roaring fire dragons rose in the void. It quickly condensed and roared. Once formed, it was about to launch a swift and violent attack on Leonardo. At this moment, buzz! A spiritual ring suddenly rose from the top of Leonardo's head. At the same time, the phantom of the First Order Fearful Phantom appeared above Leonardo's head, and an invisible mental wave quickly rose from the top of Leonardo's head. Leonardo's eyes shot out with electricity, quickly sinking into Obi's body. The rising flames on Obi couldn't help but stagnate. At the same time, Leonardo's mental attack hit the moment when the flame dragon was about to take shape. Without Obi's control, the flame dragon that quickly condensed in front of him also slowed down, turned into fire elements all over the sky, and dispersed in the air. Roar! Obi let out a roar, and his whole body trembled. He came back from the illusion, and the flames on his body rose again. He waved the giant sword in his hand and charged towards Leonardo like lightning. Go! Buzz! Another spiritual ring emerged from Leonardo's head and floated behind his head. At the same time, another spiritual wave shot out of Leonardo's eyes and disappeared into Obi's body. Obi's body trembled, and his eyes fell into blindness again. After a moment, he roared again and broke free from the illusion. Before Obi could react, the 3rd and 4th spiritual rings above Leonardo's head rose again. The phantoms of the 3 fearful phantoms and nightmare beasts flickered, and a unique wave of telekinesis enveloped Obi in it again. At this moment, the flames on Obi's body were completely extinguished, without any fluctuations in spiritual power. At the same time, his eyes became dull and lifeless. Bang! In the stunned eyes of all the spectators, Obi, who had been extremely majestic and earth-shattering in the previous 2 rounds, fell heavily on the competition ground at this moment, unconscious. Seeing this scene, the entire audience around the competition ground couldn't help but gasp. Angry, and Jason in the crowd could not help but narrow his eyes slightly. In less than 2 minutes of the entire competition, a 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master who was ranked 13th in the trial space and ranked among the top 16 in the group arena fell on the competition ground. During the whole process, Naobi failed to launch a single successful attack from beginning to end. After the first round of attacks was interrupted by Leonardo, then Naobi was gradually attacked by Nalai layer by layer. Leonardo's mental attacks were controlled to the end. Until Obi was completely immersed in the illusion, Leonardo just stood there, not moving for a moment. His eyes were calm, but gave people an extremely profound feeling, making people feel as if they were trapped in endless reincarnation. Hard to break free. Down below, countless spectators could not help but exclaim in admiration. If the previous rounds were fine, the players would be mixed. Although some players are strong, they are not too shocking. However, those who can enter the top 16 now are all extraordinary players, and their strength is absolutely unacceptable. Underestimate. Just like that Obi, the previous opponent was also a 7th-level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master. The battle between the two was earth-shattering. Their terrifying spiritual power made many veteran Imperial Spiritual Masters unable to help but marvel, but in this lie in front of Leonardo, he was like a child, easily defeated. That relaxed posture made everyone take a breath of air. In this arena match, player number 13 Obi lost consciousness, and the winner is player number 3 Leonardo. On the competition field, the referee shouted loudly and announced the result of the game. This Leonardo definitely has the strength to challenge for the championship. It's easy. He's already in the top 16. This Leonardo is still easy. No one has ever seen him take action. He's really perverted. Abnormal. Leonardo didn't even make a move in every battle from beginning to end. He just stared at his opponent and defeated him. He didn't even use his full strength, and he didn't know who could stop his illusion. Then, Clark might be able to do it. After all, he is one level higher than Leonardo. There is also Sophia, who is a light spiritual master. The spiritual attainments of light spiritual masters are also from different sects. Yes, that's right. It is only possible for the two of them, but it is only a possibility. This Leonardo is really scary. Under the competition field, all the audience were talking loudly. If the group competition has not started yet, 9% if the audience all thinks that Clark of the Cairo Empire can win the championship, then as the game progresses, Leonardo's support rate will continue to rise, almost tying Clark's support rate. Every battle, this Leonardo never made a move from beginning to end. He defeated all the players with just his eyes. No matter what level or department the opponent was, the fighting time was extremely short. Such a strange battle, everyone couldn't help but feel trembling. Not a bad opponent. Outside the competition arena, Jason looked at Leonardo's figure in the competition arena, with a faint smile on his lips and calm eyes. Huh? Leonardo, who had won the competition and walked off the competition ground, seemed to suddenly feel something and looked at Jason in the crowd. Above the crowd, two eyes intertwined, and invisible fire shot out. The corner of Leonardo's mouth twitched slightly, and his dreamy eyes suddenly flowed like water, like the boundless starry sky, vast and deep, seeming to suck all of Jason's mind into it. It's interesting. Jason smiled brightly, his eyes calm. His dark eyes were like mountains that had existed since ancient times. They were extremely calm and could not be shaken by winds, tsunamis, or changes in mountains and rivers. On the steps, seeing Jason in the crowd who was not moved by him at all, Leonardo's eyes suddenly showed a hint of surprise, and then there was a hint of expectation and he withdrew his gaze. Boom! At this moment, a huge roar suddenly came from a competition ground in the distance, and then there was the roar of a large number of spectators. Quick, look to the north. There is a big battle in the competition ground. The battle between Clark from the Cairo Empire and Levanzi from the Kamikaze Empire was so terrifying that the arena almost collapsed. As a dark-type spiritual master, Levanzi is indeed extraordinary, so everyone thought he would definitely lose, but they didn't expect that he would cause such a big commotion. The entire competition ground was filled with the voices of countless spectators. Many spectators from other arenas immediately flocked to the northern arena. Levanzi? A bright light flashed in Jason's eyes, and he quickly moved towards the north. With Jason's speed, he arrived at the arena of both parties in a moment. At this moment, Clark and Livens were at the arena. It was already crowded with a large number of spectators, but there were still many spectators flocking to the ring from all directions, wanting to see this shocking battle. In the ring, Clark's whole body looked like a huge sword soaring into the sky, with golden sword light. Rising up from him, his expression was cold and fierce, and he was full of momentum, giving people an indelible impression. On the other side of the ring, Levanzi was wrapped in a layer of black mist, which made people unrecognizable. A faint black mist spread across the ring, and wherever it went, the anti-spiritual stones on the ground made bursts of hissing sounds and continued to melt away. However, Jason was still sensitive enough to see that there was something under Levanzi's feet. Tan's bright red blood was obviously injured. Clark, you are very strong, then, take my move. Livens' voice was hoarse, like a demon from the Nine Netherworld, which made people couldn't help but get goosebumps all over their bodies. Poof! Livin slapped his chest with his palm, and a mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out from his mouth, spraying on the spiritual staff in his hand. As the blood spurted out, his face instantly became extremely pale, but it shines brightly. Terrifying spiritual power continued to spread from Li Fan's body in the ring, and the shocking black mist spread. Li Fan stood proudly in the sky, and a series of obscure and mysterious spells came from his mouth, and as the words were spoken, the dark energy in the whole world gathered crazily, and the terrifying coercion spread out. The surrounding audience involuntarily stepped back, feeling fear in their hearts. Opposite him, Clark was filled with sword aura. As the golden sword aura surged, all the black mist around him was unable to approach, melting quickly like snow under the sun. But the black mist in the entire arena was too dense. Even though Clark's sword energy was so high, there was still a large amount of black mist condensing, which was extremely terrifying. In the trembling eyes of all the audience, Livins in the black mist finally finished reciting the last syllable, and a huge shadow floated above his head, giving people an extremely depressing feeling, even the soul, at this moment. Trembling. At this moment, Livins' whole person had already turned into a black sun. Darkness, and a black mist with a strong killing aura spread out from his body. A voice filled with coldness sounded across the world. The secret of darkness, no sky. Boom. An invisible black ripple shot out from the head of the spiritual staff in Livins' hand, aiming at Clark's location and swooping away. In an instant, the entire arena was plunged into darkness. Because of the restrictions placed by the Twin Towers, the surrounding audience did not have to worry about being hurt by the attacks of the players on the arena. However, the terrifying fluctuations in spiritual power still made all the audience had bouts of heart palpitations. Everyone stared wide-eyed at the pitch-black space on the stage, trying to figure out something from it. At this moment, Golden's secret heavenly sword. A cold voice came out from the arena. Boom. Endless spiritual power exploded, and the terrifying aura continued to radiate out. In the arena that was originally filled with darkness, the boundless mist suddenly began to sway, like a black pool trapping a dragon, constantly surging, and at the same time a series of explosion sounds were heard. In everyone's eyes, a golden light shines out from the boundless darkness, like the first light of dawn in the dark night, illuminating the whole world. A golden sword energy, connecting heaven and earth, suddenly slashed across the ring, and the boundless darkness melted away. Amidst the huge roar, a black figure fell out from the ring, and blood continued to flow from him. There was spitting out of his mouth, and there was a deep sword mark on his chest, reaching as deep as the bone, and blood was constantly gushing out. It's that Livanzi has lost. After seeing that figure, there was a burst of exclamation from the crowd, and their eyes returned to the ring. In the ring, the black mist continued to melt, and in a moment, the brightness returned. In the middle of the ring, Clark stood proudly, with a golden sword in his hand, like a god of death, with sword energy soaring into the sky. Clark still wins. After all, there is a 2-level difference between the two. Although Li Fan is powerful, it is still difficult to resist Clark. Under such a powerful attack from Li Fan, Clark was not even hurt at all. It's terrible. Come on. Many people in the crowd were shocked. Ahem. At this moment, Clark's body suddenly shook on the ring, and a trace of blood slipped quietly from the corner of his mouth, blooming like a beautiful flower on the broken rock ground. Suddenly, there was silence under the arena. Livin's attack still hurt Clark. This Livanzi among the crowd, the eyes of Tim, the elder of the spiritual master tower, suddenly burst into light. This Li Fingzi is a 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master. He has understood the laws of the dark system to such an extent. It is simply unbelievable the spiritual master tower, must get such a talent. Tim's eyes flashed, spoke firmly in his heart. When Kraden eliminated Livins, amazing battles were also going on in several other arenas. The audience was free to choose to watch, but the contestants all used their full strength to advance from 16 to 8. It seemed that the difference was only one round, but in comparison, it was a world of difference. Yun and I divided. One is in the top 10, and the other is not. The explanations cannot be determined by a simple round of competition. The attitude towards them by the Twin Towers may also be very different. Therefore, in this round of competition, all the players tried their best. In the previous rounds, maybe some players did not want to get injured or were afraid of causing trouble, so they did not work hard. After all, they also knew their own strength. There is no big difference at all if you can't enter the top 10, advance one round or drop one round, but in this round, all the players have put everything they have into it for the sake of ranking. Huge explosions of spiritual power continued to sound in the arenas of various competitions. Watching these players perform their strongest attacks, all the spectators were enraptured. Many 7th-level Imperial spiritual masters even learned from those geniuses. During the battle, the players also realized some things that they had not understood in their previous understanding of the rules, which benefited them a lot. After half a day's work, the 16-8 competition was finally over. In 16-8, what all the viewers will remember is the battle between Clark and Lavanzi. Although this battle did not last too long, it was deeply engraved in everyone's heart. The terrifying aura that erupted from the explosion still makes some players unable to help but feel lingering fear even now. At the same time, the news that Clark was injured by Livens also made everyone marvel at Livens' strength. From the game to now, Clark's first injury made many people feel that although Livens it was an honor to lose. After all, his opponent was Clark, the 7th-level senior Imperial spiritual master who had the best chance of winning this competition. Naturally, there were also big battles taking place in other arenas. Just like the 7th-level low-level Wind-type Emperor spiritual master Rongxing from the Kamikaze Empire, he fought with another player who was a 7th-level low-level Emperor spiritual master for a long time. Although he was seriously injured, Rongxing won with a slight advantage in the end. The whole battle was extremely brutal, but in the hearts of others, they felt that it could not be compared with Clark's battle. But what makes everyone in the Northwest excited is that in this 16-8 competition, except for Jason who advanced, Temujin's opponents this time were 4 6th-level players besides Jason and Kiros. One of the top senior spiritual masters also advanced to the top 8 after a hard battle. Jiang, the top 8 players in this continental elite competition have been produced. Jason and Temujin from the Northwest have all entered the top 8. This made many people who were good at predicting before the game shut up. After this round of fighting, the 8 players eliminated were naturally very regretful, but the winner meant that they entered the top 10 in this continental elite competition. In such a large-scale competition, hundreds of thousands of geniuses across the continent have won the top 10. Such an honor is enough to spread the reputation of these people throughout the continent. However, there are still some people who promoted Jason and Temujin thinking it is luck. Indeed, Jason advanced in the 16th to 8th round without fighting at all, while Temujin was just average and didn't meet any particularly strong players. In everyone's minds, Jason and Temujin are both capable, but whether they can enter the top 10 is still open to question. However, despite the doubts in the hearts of those people, it is an undisputed fact that Jason and Temujin both entered the top 8. In the Northwest residential area, Xuanfeng's face was extremely proud and he laughed loudly. Although neither Jason nor Temujin are players from the Lubanar Kingdom on this big stage, it is enough that both of them are players from the Northwest. Except for Xuanfeng, Tuale, and others, people are also full of smiles. When they first came, they were not welcomed wherever they went. But as the game progresses, no matter where they go, there are people who greet them warmly. After this round of competition, they can already imagine that more and more people will contact them in the future. They occupy 2 seats in the top 8. This is a treatment that the 4 major empires do not have. In the next game, Xuanfeng and the others did not mobilize anything. They just said, Jason, Temujin, in the next game, although the winner can enter the top 4, it doesn't matter if you lose. It is enough for a person to have entered the top 10. Although the next competition is important, you must not injure yourself seriously for the sake of a better ranking, otherwise it will be more than worth the gain. Jason and Temujin nodded solemnly. At the current situation of the competition, in addition to performance, it also depends on the draw. First, don't encounter top masters like Clark, Sophia, and Leonardo. Second, don't encounter Jason and Temujin. This is almost the common mentality of Xuanfeng and others. After all, although the players who have made it this far are all very strong, there is still a huge difference. In Xuanfeng's heart, if Jason and the others met Clark and the others, they would have absolutely no chance of winning easily. Even if they will be eliminated, although the other 3 players are also very strong, Jason and Temujin still have a glimmer of hope of winning. Especially after today's game, Xuanfeng and the others specifically inquired. Although 2 of the remaining 3 players advanced, they suffered extremely serious injuries. Although a one-day rest period could allow them to recovery, but they will definitely not be able to exert their full combat effectiveness in the game the day after tomorrow. As for Jason and Temujin, Jason was unscathed. Although Temujin was injured, it was not serious. He had 1 day to rest, which was enough to recuperate his body. Under such a premise, Xuanfeng and the others couldn't help but imagine that if Jason and Temujin could enter the semi-finals, it would really give Northwest a face on the mainland. There was a day's rest in between, and with everyone's anticipation and anxious waiting, the match day of the 5th round arrived as promised. Today's competition day is not only a competition between the top 8, but also the 9th to 16th place, because any ranking after the top 16 will be determined through a duel, and the method of determination it's exactly the same as the first 8. The 9th place is just like the champion among the top 8, from the program to the process, they are exactly the same. Of course, the 8 people who were eliminated in the last round are not as exciting as this 8-4 game. The only highlight is that these 8 people compete for 9th and 10th. The top 10 names can arouse a little bit of interest. The actual draw ceremony for 8-4 is even more eye-catching. Everyone knows that after this round, the winner will directly lock in the top 4. Which 4 will be the last lucky ones, and will the top players meet in advance? These suspense aroused everyone's interest. Even the guardians of the Twin Towers are looking forward to it very much. They know that these players will be the players that the Twin Towers will compete for each other. And this battle is really the time to see their true potential. All 8 lots were put into the container, and each of the Twin Towers still sent a guardian to draw the lots. Number 1, number 8. However, Thorson did not expect that in this round of drawing lots, he actually drank the soup and was the first to be caught. But his opponent was the Melting Saint from the Kamikaze Empire, a 7th-level low-level Imperial Spirit Master. After seeing Jason's opponent, Xuanfeng and others in the crowd had a hint of joy on their faces. They had also known this Rongsheng before. He was a Wind Spiritual Master from the Kamikaze Empire, and he was quite powerful. Strong, but it is worth mentioning that in the last round of the competition, this Rongsheng was the most seriously injured. He fought with another player inextricably, and it was not until the end that he won with a slight advantage. And this Rongsheng was almost the most seriously injured player among the 8 players in the previous game. In just 1 day, he could not recover from his injuries. While Xuanfeng and the others were happy, the Rongsheng couldn't help but feel happy after discovering that his opponent turned out to be Jason. God is really treating me badly. Doesn't it mean that he wants me to be in the top 4? Rongsheng was so ecstatic that he couldn't help himself. Originally, in this round, Rongsheng, who was seriously injured and had not yet recovered, had long been prepared to be eliminated. However, after seeing that his opponent was Jason, the only 6th-level senior spiritual master among the 8, he couldn't help but think again. Great hope. Among the crowd, Jason and Rongsheng walked to the front of the venue. That Rongxing is really lucky. He actually faced that Jason. It seems that he is going to advance again this time. That's right. Although the Rongxing was seriously injured, he is recognized as a strong man after all. That Jason, although Sin is not weak, he is lucky to be here. No matter who he meets this round, his good luck is over. That can't be said for sure. Although Jason is a 6th level senior spiritual master, his strength is not weak. If the melting saint is in perfect condition, maybe there is no hope for Jason. But now that the melting saint is seriously injured, I think this Jason should be able to defeat the opponent. That's right. I watched the game between Jason and Thor. Except for Clark, Sophia, and Leonardo, any 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master who met us for Jason, I don't think he can win easily. Many people in the crowd were talking about it, some were optimistic about Rongxing, and some still supported Jason, the biggest dark horse. People have this kind of mentality. They like duels between geniuses, and they also like upsets. Soon, each contestant was drawn out. Number 2, number 3. When these two numbers burst out from the mouths of the two guardians, the entire venue fell silent. It's Clark and Sophia. Oh my god, this is a top-notch showdown. One of these two people is going to be eliminated. Immediately, the entire venue suddenly burst into an uproar, and the crowd was buzzing. These two people, in everyone's mind, are the top players in this competition, with absolute top 4 strength. But in the 8-4 competition, they met early, which made everyone feel regretful, and also it is full of expectations. Soon, all 8 players had opponents, and Temujin was also lucky enough to not draw Leonardo, but instead faced off against a 7th level low-level Imperial Spirit Master. After all the players were drawn out, the 8 players present walked towards their respective arenas under the leadership of the Twin Towers staff. Jason and Kiros also walked towards their own competition ground, and then walked onto the ring, respectively. As the referee started, Jason and his opponent stood face to face. This is a handsome young man with long green hair, wearing a green robe. He holds a slender long sword in his hand, and a faintly threatening aura escapes. Are you Jason? Rongxing said with a smile on his face, My name is Rongxing. I come from the Kamikaze Empire. I admire you, a 6th level senior spiritual master, for being able to reach this point. But well, this scene, since you met me in the competition, it can be said to be your luck or your misfortune. After the competition started, the melting saint had no idea of fighting, but instead chatted with Jason calmly. To tell you the truth, I am not only a 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master, but also a 6th level high-level alchemist and at the same time a low-level 6th level elixir master. Haha, are you dumbfounded? Do you admire me? Rongxing's face was filled with a proud smile. Hearing the other party's nagging words, Jason Feng couldn't help but frown, and quietly raised the black épée in his hand. The reason why Jason defended in the first game was to test his physical skills. In the second game, Jason kept defending just to force Thor to use his ultimate move to see if there was any possibility of forging his body. This game, Jason doesn't want to make ink with the opponent. In fact, when the game has reached this level, there is no need to hide. When the battle reaches this level, Jason can't help but hide too much. Such an opponent is enough for Jason to really showing off his skills. Whoosh! Thinking of this, the spiritual Goddard in Jason's body suddenly accelerated, and his whole body turned into a bolt of lightning, aiming at the molten saint, and flew away at high speed. Wait a minute. Seeing Jason taking action so quickly, the melting saint immediately shouted. I have also learned about your information. I heard that you are also an elixir master. Well, if you are willing to surrender this time, after the game, I can consider giving you some advice on elixir science. Rongxing crackled and hurriedly said a series of words. Jason ignored the other party's words. From the melting saint's body, Jason felt a vague wave of energy. It was obvious that the other party was stalling for time. Huh. The black heavy sword drew a black light directly in the air, aiming at the melting saint's head and slashing hard. This seemingly simple blow was actually extremely dangerous. Wherever the long sword touched, it burst out with an astonishing momentum, as if the surrounding space was completely frozen for an instant, and the air was solidified. Under the heavy sword, there was no way to avoid Rongsheng. He was directly hit in the head. However, Jason's brows furrowed deeply at this moment. The black heavy sword slashed across the opponent's body, and Rongsheng's entire body was struck. The body burst like a bubble and gradually dissipated into the air. Afterimage? Jason suddenly turned around. Not far away, a figure gradually emerged. It was the melting saint from before. You guys, you are too cruel. If I hadn't mastered the shadow clone of the wind element, I would have gone directly to heaven. Not far away, Saint Rong screamed. Jason didn't pay any attention to it, and his figure skyrocketed again. At the same time, he was also surprised by the opponent's speed. Wind Spirit Master, he is very good at speed. But no matter how fast the opponent is, Jason is sure to capture the opponent's figure. But before, he only found out that it was an afterimage when he hit the opponent. Such terrifying strength is definitely not simple. As far as the afterimages caused by the speed can be explained, it is obvious that this melting saint has reached an extremely high level in understanding the laws of the wind system. Hi! The heavy sword fell like lightning, directly splitting the melting saint into two halves, but Jason's brows frowned again. It's a phantom again? This molten saint. Looking at the empty competition field, Jason closed his eyes, and his senses were scattered throughout the competition field. He tried to use his soul to sense everything around him. From the opponent's body, Jason Sen felt an inexplicable force. It was obvious that the melting saint was delaying time in order to perform some kind of terrifying trick. There. Suddenly, Jason's eyes suddenly opened, and a ray of light burst out from them, looking towards a corner of the competition field. Whoosh! Jia stabbed into a stream of light and flew away like lightning. Haha, boy, you have been attacking before. Take my move and go down. Not far away, the figure of Rongsheng flashed. This time, he did not dodge, and green rays of light suddenly shot from his body. The ground burst out, and in an instant, his figure seemed to turn into a blue sun. Terrifying spiritual power radiated from his body, and the slender long sword in his hand suddenly started to swing. The mystery of wind and 10,000 swords unite. In an instant, thousands of shadows of waving arms appeared in front of Rongsheng. Thousands of arms waved at the same time, and thousands of green sword shadows appeared on the competition field. Jason's figure, which was flying toward Melting Saint at high speed, suddenly stopped. Each of these sword shadows had a terrifying aura. However, what surprised Jason even more was that these sword shadows did not simply shoot at him, but continued to flow in the sky in a certain pattern. In the end, they turned out to be strange. They were continuously combined to form a huge array pattern. What is that? Below, some viewers who did not go to watch Clark and Sophia fight, but watched Jason and Molten Saint fight couldn't help but exclaimed. Haha, boy, I'll let you try my unique skill of melting the saint. This is the ultimate diagram of the wind that I combined based on the mysteries of the wind and the alchemy pattern. I advise you to admit defeat and surrender. With your strength, it is absolutely impossible to survive under my wind killer diagram. Rongsheng shouted, his hands kept shaking, and the sword shadows were completely combined under his control. Buzz. When the last sword shadow was integrated into the formation diagram, a dazzling green light burst out from the huge formation diagram. The huge formation diagram rotated full of mystery, aiming at Jia Sen's location was rumbling over. Wherever it went, the air continued to shatter like glass. At the edge of the array, the void collapsed, and dark space cracks continued to escape. Pfft. On the other side of the competition field, a mouthful of blood spattered from the mouth of Rongsheng, who had performed this move. After the formation was successfully formed, Rongsheng knelt down heavily on one knee. In order to launch this terrifying attack, the serious injuries that Rongsheng suffered in the last battle broke out completely, and he almost had no strength to fight anymore. However, his face was full of smiles. This was the moment he was waiting for. Once the formation was formed, he knew that he would win this battle. Rongsheng has shown amazing alchemy talent since he was a child. He likes to decompose and study many equipments, especially those high-end equipments. If there are unmastered technologies used in them, it will make him fall into crazy research and calculations. He is the alchemical madman. At the same time, Rongsheng also had a very deep understanding of the laws of the wind system. Therefore, after he was promoted to the 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master, he wanted to combine the laws of the wind system and alchemy to create a unique skill. Many people who knew him thought he was crazy. However, what everyone did not expect was that he actually created this terrifying trick. Using the mysteries of the wind element to combine attacks into alchemical, the 5 elements killing formation doubled the attack intensity. The 5 elements killing formation is an extremely stable formation among alchemical formations. Once the killing pattern is formed, it cannot be broken unless the opponent can instantly release an attack 10 times the energy contained in the killing pattern. This is the killer picture. Melting Saint is originally a 7th level low-level Imperial Spiritual Master. After using the Secret of Wind, he can kill even an ordinary 7th level Intermediate Emperor Spiritual Master. After combining the Secret of Wind with the alchemy formation diagram, the attack will increase several times. Therefore, if you want to break through the wind's ultimate plan, you must reach dozens or even hundreds of times the energy of the 7th level Intermediate Imperial Spiritual Master. With such terrifying energy, among ordinary spiritual masters, even the 7th level high-level Imperial Spiritual Master, the Master is also unable to do it. Among the entire players, in the imagination of Rongsheng, only the 7th level Senior Emperor Spiritual Master Genius like Clark is possible to break through, and the others have no possibility at all. However, this move also has a weakness. It is ineffective against spiritual masters who also understand the law of wind. The wind-based Imperial Spiritual Master who understands the law can easily escape the range of this wind's ultimate killing chart. Unfortunately, the opponent of the Melting Saint in the last match was also a 7th level low-level wind-type Imperial Spiritual Master. This led to him fighting with the opponent for a long time before entering with a slight advantage and at the cost of serious injuries. Quarterfinals. Moreover, the final picture of the wind takes too long to brew, so at the beginning of the game, Melting Saint was the one who kept stalling for time. Surrender, Jason, you lose. Don't try to resist my wind-killing chart. With the strength of your attack, it's useless. Unless you are a 7th level advanced Imperial Spirit Master, there may still be a chance. If you don't surrender, once you are entangled in my wind-killing chart, even I won't be able to save you. On the competition ground, Rongsheng shouted loudly. He didn't want a genius like Jason to die under his own killer map. Rumble. The huge wind-killing picture continued to rotate, and the cyan light overflowed in all directions, like a gear, cutting the space. Wherever it went, the competition field made of hard anti-spiritual stone continued to collapse. It broke into pieces, and then instantly turned into powder and dissipated in the air. Mysterious formation symbols are constantly circulating on the killing map, bringing terrifying murderous intent. Thousands of strange green lights flash here, creating hazy overlapping images in the space wherever they pass. The space seemed to be forbidden. Under the influence of the terrifying aura, Jason felt as if his body was trapped in a huge quagmire. There was an astonishing binding force around him, restricting his actions. Below, all the spectators stared at Jason in the competition arena with wide eyes. Although they could not feel the huge binding force of the wind-killing diagram like Jason, from the terrifying space crack, from the terrifying aura emanating from it, one can feel the terror of this wind's ultimate killing diagram. According to the energy aura conveyed by the wind's ultimate killing diagram, if you want to break through the wind's ultimate killing diagram, you must release at least 10 times the energy attack of the wind's ultimate killing diagram. Otherwise, no matter how you attack, they can only be entangled in an instant by this wind-killing figure on the competition field. Facing the wind-killing figure that was constantly rumbling towards him, Jason did not dodge, with a bright light shining in his eyes, constantly thinking about solutions. With his perception and knowledge in alchemy, he immediately calculated the energy required to break through the wind's ultimate diagram. But with the strength of his 6th-level senior spiritual master, even if the energy of all the meridians in his body was spit out in an instant, and he used the 3 waves of Feng Yen at the same time, Jason knew that he could not break through the wind's killing chart. And even though the diameter of the formation was only more than 10 feet, Jason understood that at this moment, he couldn't use the lightning wings to fly away at all, and he couldn't even dodge left and right. At the moment when the wind's killer diagram was formed, this space was blocked, and there was no other way except to break the wind's killer diagram. Unless Jason is a spiritual master of the wind system and understands the secret laws of the wind system that form the ultimate wind diagram, he will be able to leave the attack range of the wind ultimate diagram. Are we going to use the wrath of God? Jason frowned. To be honest, he didn't want to use the wrath of God. The wrath of God was powerful, but it was his biggest trump card. Once it was exposed and others were prepared, the next game would be a little difficult, and although Jason's current bloodline has been greatly improved after breaking through the 6 restrictions of the Red Dragon Crystal, and it is much easier to use the wrath of God, using it once will still cause discomfort to his body. Small trauma. Jason instinctively didn't want to rely on this trick. Moreover, Jason was not sure that his God's wrath could achieve the most life-saving blow for a 7th-level peak Imperial Spiritual Master and break through the wind's killing chart. There must be another way. Looking at the mysterious and approaching wind-killing picture, Jason's eyes flickered. The ultimate killing diagram of wind is a combination of wind mysteries and alchemy formation. It combines the ethereal wind attacks in the strongest form. It is extremely stable. In addition to breaking through with absolute attacks, there are also how can we break this stable structure? Jason frowned in thought. No, suddenly, a ray of light lit up in Jason's mind like lightning. There must be something wrong. Jason thought hard, looking for that fleeting glimmer of inspiration. The alchemy array makes it stable. The alchemy array makes it stable. By the way, the key lies in this alchemy array. Jason's eyes suddenly burst into light, and there was a look on his face. With a look of ecstasy, electricity shot towards the rumbling wind that was pressing towards him. Although Jason's entire thinking process sounds long, it actually happened in the blink of an eye. Although the alchemy array can make the combination of wind mysteries more stable, similarly, since it is an array, it must have weaknesses and flaws. So where are the flaws in this array? Jason had already found it in his mind. That's where the inspiration comes from. Since it's an array, it's usually made up of various array patterns and formations. In this world, any formation will have weaknesses and flaws, even the most advanced formations. There is no absolutely stable formation. This is what Jason has learned. At this moment, what Jason is looking for is the flaw in the wind's ultimate map. No one knows that in addition to being a 9th-level elixir master in his previous life, Jason was actually an alchemist master. However, his achievements in alchemy pale in comparison to his achievements in elixir science, so it is not well known. In fact, elixirs and alchemy have many similarities. Generally, a master of elixirs will have certain attainments in alchemy. After all, there are many places where they are used in the preparation of elixirs. Knowledge of alchemy. On the other side of the competition ground, the melting saint was startled when he saw the excitement in Jason's eyes. Is it possible that Jason can still break through my wind killer plan? Impossible, impossible. Melting Saint shook his head repeatedly. Knowing that Jason was a 6th-level senior spiritual master, he didn't believe that Jason could do it at all. Unleash an attack dozens or hundreds of times more powerful than a 7th-level intermediate imperial spiritual master. And when he saw that Jason did not launch an attack, but instead kept looking at the wind killer diagram with his spiritual consciousness and eyes, Melting Saint was even more dumbfounded. Haha, Jason, you're not trying to find flaws in my wind-killing picture, are you? Are you kidding me? I advise you to give up. There are no flaws in this wind-killing picture, even if it's a body. I can't find him as the creator, so how can you find him? Rongxing shouted loudly and shook his head repeatedly. This is not that he was lying to Jason. The prototype of the wind's ultimate diagram was the 5 elements ultimate formation. The 5 elements ultimate formation was an extremely basic formation in alchemy. It was precisely because of its foundation that it led to it has no flaws at all. At least so far, no formation master or alchemist on the mainland has discovered the flaws in this 5-element killer formation. I advise you to surrender as soon as possible, otherwise, even I can't save you. Don't you want to die? Rongxing kept shouting at Jason. Jason did not answer, but continued to analyze the formation patterns and circuits formed by the wind element's mystical attacks on the wind ultimate map. Below, all the audience looked at Jason curiously, not understanding what he was doing. This is the 5 elements killing formation. After a moment of analysis, Jason finally saw the prototype of the wind killing formation constructed by Melting Saint. Haha. After seeing the prototype of this wind killer picture, Jason suddenly let out a hearty laugh, his eyes flashed with pride. Jason's laughter immediately startled Rongxing, but Jason's next move made Rongxing dumbfounded. Jason's spiritual energy surged all over his body, and he raised the black heavy sword in his hand, aiming at the wind's killer figure and swiping away violently. This Jason, don't you want to live? You can't break this wind's killing chart. Rongxing's face was full of anxiety, and he shouted loudly. As the creator of the wind-killing diagram, Melting Saint is extremely aware of the terror of the wind-killing diagram. Once a spiritual master rushes into its attack range, as long as he cannot break it, he will definitely be terrorized. The power of wind is cut into powder. This is the power of wind that can cut even space into gaps. Moreover, once the wind-killing chart is activated and a spiritual master breaks into it, even he, the releaser, cannot control it. Melting Saint really didn't want a genius like Jason to die under his own attack. In the sight of Melting Saint, Jason had already broken into the attack range of the wind's killing figure. In the final picture of wind, the lightning wings suddenly stretched out from behind Jason, his eyes were calm, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th spiritual rings in his body were trembling respectively, and then the black color in his hand, the heavy sword, suddenly shot out, stabbing hard at the 4 points of the wind's killing figure. Boom! 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 4 subtle explosions of spiritual power sounded in the competition field. The 4 swords that Jason thrust out actually touched the ultimate blow of the wind. The formation patterns on the surface of the figure were blocked, and the attacks he released seemed to have disappeared into the sea, without any reaction. Jason, who had used the lightning wings, was like a butterfly tied in the air. He could no longer move at all. Within the attack range of the wind defeat map, the space was completely restricted. The wind's killing map kept spinning, aiming at Jason in front of him and crushing him hard. However, the expression on Jason's face was extremely calm, without any fluctuation. It's over. On the other side of the competition ground, Rongxing couldn't help but let out a cry of despair. He no longer dared to see Jason's fate. He couldn't think of any other possibility besides turning into blood mist. Just when the killer picture of wind was about to touch Jason's body and twist Jason's whole body into a bloody mist, a strange scene appeared in everyone's astonished eyes. A ripple suddenly emanated from the point Jason stabbed. Immediately, the spiritual power lines started to shake at the 2nd point Jason stabbed, then the 3rd point, the 4th point, and the point Jason didn't stab. A certain array pattern also fluctuated, and these 5 points combined together to form a standard 5-pointed star. Immediately, the mysterious formation symbols on the entire formation began to tremble continuously as if they were drunk. This is impossible." Seeing this, Rongxing suddenly screamed as if he had seen a ghost, with an expression of disbelief on his face. Boom! In the dumbfounded gazes of all the spectators and the melting saint, the wind's ultimate killing diagram, which carried an extremely terrifying aura, collapsed in an instant, and the wind's spiritual power spread out and blew on the ring. A terrifying hurricane broke out, and finally turned into wind spiritual elements that filled the sky and dissipated in the air. The wind spiritual elements that filled the sky quickly dispersed, the hurricane dissipated, and the entire competition ground was in a mess. All the anti-spiritual stones on the ground shattered, and were cut several feet deep. However, the wind's ultimate killing map was also completely disappeared, and on the side of the competition ground, Jason held a black heavy sword and slowly walked towards the melting saint with dull eyes and a face full of disbelief. "Impossible, this is impossible," Rongxing muttered to himself, his expression dull. Bang! Facing Jason, who was walking towards him with a heavy sword, Rongxing's eyes were dull and he didn't resist at all. He was swept away by Jason and then fell heavily outside the ring. In fact, after displaying the ultimate map of wind, Melting Saint, who had been seriously injured in the previous game, could no longer launch any powerful attacks. At this moment, even any player who broke into the top 100 in the trial space can easily defeat Melting Saint. In this round of 8-4 competition, Jason from the northwest of the mainland won and advanced to the next round of competition. On the ring, the referee from the Twin Towers shouted loudly and announced the result of the competition. "Here, what happened just now?" Although Jason blocked the attack launched by Melting Saint, it had no impact at all. Why did the wind killer diagram automatically collapse? What's going on? Under the ring, all the spectators watching the match were puzzled and murmured. Everyone could clearly see the previous situation. Jason was unable to resist the killing blow of the wind. Some players from the Kamikaze Empire who were close friends with the Rongxing almost cheered the Rongxing's victory. However, the ending was such a big change that left everyone stunned. In the competition arena, Jason slowly walked down the steps. Master, if you advance, I know Master, you will definitely advance." Under the competition ground, Claire shouted with great excitement and rushed towards Jason. In this round of competition, although there was a shocking battle between Clark and Sophia, most people from the Northwest did not go to watch their competition, but came to watch the competition between Jason and Temujin separately. After all, the two of them represent the northwest of the continent. Winning or being eliminated affects the hearts of everyone in the Northwest. Under the ring, looking at Jason, Renault, Xuanfeng and others with smiles on their faces, Jason broke into the semifinals, which is undoubtedly extremely exciting news for Northwest. The semifinals, Jason's entry shows that at least one of the 4 major empires in the mainland will not be able to enter the semifinals. Such news and such an honor were something that Xuanfeng and the others could not even imagine before the mainland elite competition. "Rongxing, are you okay?" On the other side of the ring, the injured Rongxing was also helped up by people from the Kamikaze Empire and asked with concern. Impossible. Then how did Jason break through my wind-killing diagram? This is impossible. Although the 4 swords he thrust out had extremely strange impact points, they were all at the circuit nodes of the formation diagram. Click on it, but it won't cause my ultimate wind diagram that combines the secret of wind and the alchemy diagram to collapse instantly? Until now, Rongxing was still mumbling to himself, unable to believe in his heart that as Fengxing, the creator of the ultimate killing map, until now, Melting Saint still doesn't understand the principle behind Jason breaking through the wind's ultimate killing map. Whoosh! Under everyone's surprised gazes, Rongxing jumped up suddenly, then aimed at Jason and the others, and flew away quickly. Rongxing! The players and team leaders from the Kamikaze Empire couldn't help but froze, and then followed behind Rongxing and rushed towards Jason's location. I guess the battle between Clark and Sophia is not over yet. Let's go and see Clark and Sophia fighting, Jason suggested at the Northwest team, and the group immediately headed towards where Clark was. Walk to the ring. Of course, Xuanfeng and others did not go with Jason. After learning about Jason's qualification, what they were concerned about at the moment was how the competition in the ring where Temujin was sitting was going. Jason, walk slowly. At this moment, an anxious shout suddenly came from behind everyone. Jason and others stopped and saw the melting saint who had been defeated by them before, flying very fast not far away. It rushed over and was at Jason's side in an instant. Di Lin and others immediately took a step forward, stopped in front of the Rongxing, and looked at the Rongxing warily. Ahem. The sharp movement caused the injuries in Darren Saint's body to explode immediately, and traces of blood spilled from his mouth. However, he was unaware of it and stared at Jason anxiously. Jason, how did you defeat my wind-killing chart before? Are there any particularities in the 4 points you struck? I have studied the 4 swords you struck, and the locations where they were struck. It happens to be the node of the 5 elements transformation circuit of the 5 elements ultimate formation, but the construction energy of my 5 elements ultimate formation is a single wind energy. Calculated according to the Freud's law formula in the alchemical energy law, it shouldn't be possible for the attack to cause the collapse of the wind's ultimate map, right? Melting Saint looked at Jason with doubts in his eyes. Looking at Rongxing's anxious, eager, doubtful, and puzzled eyes, Jason couldn't help but smile. From the eyes of the Melting Saint, Jason could see that the Melting Saint was not disappointed or frustrated at all by the results of the previous game. What he was focused on was how to break through his wind killer map, or rather, is concerned with how to do this from the alchemical aspect. This Melting Saint, like himself, is a crazy person in a certain area. He is in elixir science, and this Melting Saint is in alchemy. He is a real alchemist master. In order to make progress in alchemy, you can do anything. Faced with such a master who was eager for alchemical knowledge, Jason couldn't refuse. Actually, it's very simple. Jason said slowly with a smile on his face, the composition of your wind ultimate diagram is composed of 2 parts, the secret of wind and the 5 elements ultimate formation in the alchemy diagram. Composition, and since it is an alchemy formation, there must be flaws, and the reason why I can break through your wind ultimate formation is that I found the flaw in the 5 elements ultimate formation impossible. Still before Jason could finish speaking, Rongxing's brows furrowed and he said, the 5 elements killing formation is the most basic alchemy formation. It is based on the principle of the mutual generation and restraint of the 5 elements energy to construct a stable formation. The structure can be said to be one of the most perfect formations in the alchemy formation diagram, and there will be no flaws at all. Rongxing's tone was firm and full of unquestionable flavor. As the basic formation in alchemy, the 5 elements ultimate formation has been circulated on the mainland for thousands of years. So far, no formation master or alchemist on the mainland has discovered the flaw in this 5 elements ultimate formation. Impossible? Nothing is impossible. Jason shook his head, and his tone suddenly became stern. There is no absolute in anything in this world, whether it is spiritual mechanics, elixir science, or alchemy, even if it is the most basic axiom. There is no absolute statement. It is only an axiom at a certain moment. As people understand more, no matter how perfect the formula is, it may be improved and overturned one day. If there is no questioning and research, overthrown the spirit, then everything in this world will remain stagnant and no longer make the slightest progress. Jason's words shocked the Melting Saint opposite. What happened at this moment was also noticed by many viewers, and many viewers rushed up to see what happened between the Melting Saint and Jason. After Rongxing, the team leaders and players from the Kamikaze Empire also rushed over. When they found that Rongxing and Jason did not conflict, but were communicating about something, they all stood aside quietly without saying a word. Say. If there is no spirit of questioning, research, and overthrow, then everything in this world will remain stagnant and no longer make the slightest progress. Rongxing repeated Jason's words, but his heart couldn't help but stir at this moment. Over the turbulent waves, Jason's words were like a giant hammer, hitting his heart hard, making him tremble. On the side, many viewers also heard this sentence, and many people had thoughtful expressions on their faces. Regarding this sentence, Jason felt deeply in his heart. The history of human civilization progress is actually a process of constantly overturning original knowledge and creating new knowledge. Without such a spirit, Jason in his previous life would not have been able to create the science of technical spiritual medicine, the school of violent spiritual masters would not have emerged, and much knowledge would not have been innovated. The 5 elements killing formation is one of the most basic formations in alchemy. It is based on the principle of the mutual generation and restraint of the 5 elements' energies to build a stable formation structure. The most critical thing in building this formation is the stability of the 5 elements' energies. However, just because of this, it is also its flaw. As Jason spoke, the giant sword behind his back suddenly unsheathed and drew a simple 5-element killing formation on the ground. This way, this way, this way, and this way, and this way. The épée in Jason's hand clicked on the 5 points of the 5 elements killing formation on the ground. These 5 points. This place is the node of the circuit where the 5 elements spiritual power blends with each other in the 5 elements decisive killing formation. It is also the flaw of the 5 elements decisive killing formation. If it is destroyed, it will cause the entire formation to collapse. Rongxing's eyes fell on the 5 elements killing formation and the 5 points at Jason's feet. At the same time, the formulas in his mind were constantly being calculated rapidly. As the calculation progressed, Rongxing's eyes became brighter and brighter. The 5 elements are mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. These 5 points are where the 5 elements spiritual power blends with each other. As long as the balance between them is destroyed, the stable structure can be broken. So that's it, melting saint muttering to himself. As an alchemist master, Rongxing quickly understood Jason's words, while the surrounding audience was still confused. But, Master Jason, at this moment, Rongxing's gaze towards Jason had completely changed. His eyes were full of respect, and at the same time, his address also changed from Jason to Master Jason. After understanding what Jason said, he already had a clear understanding of the flaws of the 5 elements killing formation, but at the same time, another question arose in his mind. Master Jason, the energy I used to construct the wind-killing diagram was not the spiritual power of the 5 elements, but the power of wind. If you destroyed 4 of the points, how could it lead to the collapse of the wind-killing diagram? Where are you? Rongxing looked at Jason and asked sincerely. If it is a general 5 elements killing formation, according to Jason, as long as the nodes where the spiritual powers of each system are blended are destroyed, the 5 elements spiritual powers will be unbalanced, eventually leading to the collapse of the formation. This is definitely. However, when Rongxing previously constructed the ultimate killing formation of wind, the 5 elements ultimate killing formation was not built with the spiritual power of the 5 elements. Instead, it used the power of wind generated by the mystery of wind. Even if the spiritual power was destroyed, the node where the wind spiritual power and the spiritual power of the 5 elements blend together should not cause the formation to collapse. At this point, Rongxing's heart was still full of doubts. After hearing Rongxing's question, Jason couldn't help but laugh. He said, "You did not use the 5 elements spiritual power to build the 5 elements killing formation, but I can add it." You added it? The confusion on Rongxing's face couldn't help but become even worse. Look, Jason smiled, and the long sword in his hand suddenly stabbed out like lightning. Hi! A sharp sound broke through the air, and a ray of yellow light emerged from the black heavy sword. Tisk! Jason then stabbed out with another sword. This time, the light that appeared on the black épée turned red. Then, with the third sword, the spiritual light turned into gold. Finally, for the fourth sword, the light of spiritual power turned cyan again. After stabbing 4 swords, Jason inserted the black épée back behind his back and looked at the stunned molten saint opposite with a smile. Earth spiritual power, fire spiritual power, gold spiritual power, wood spiritual power, you are Rongsheng looked at Jason stupidly. From the 4 swords thrust out by Jason, Rongsheng felt the arrival of 4 different spiritual power attributes made Rongsheng extremely surprised, but he also fully understood in his heart. So that's it. Rongsheng sighed with emotion, looking at Jason's eyes, but at this moment, the previous admiration turned into admiration. Yes, admire. At this moment, Rongsheng looked at Jason with the same eyes as a small elixir disciple looking at a legendary elixir master. That look was filled with respect, admiration, excitement, and excitement. Excited, but even more shocked. Although the 5 elements killing formation constructed by Rongsheng himself was not formed by the spiritual power of the 5 elements, Jason, as a multi-system spiritual master, instilled the 4 spiritual powers he possessed into the formation. The 5 elements killing formation must be driven by the 5 elements together, and each one is indispensable. After Jason infused 4 kinds of spiritual power into it, the instability of the spiritual powers finally led to the collapse of the 5 elements killing formation, and the formation diagram collapsed, and the wind spiritual power contained in it, the secret of wind, naturally collapsed together. This is the truth behind Jason's simple 4 swords, which instantly defeated the wind's ultimate killing diagram that could kill even a 7th-level senior imperial spiritual master. When everything was revealed and I looked back and thought about it, the principle was so simple, but Rongsheng knew it deeply in his heart, unless Jason was a master with profound knowledge in alchemy, otherwise, such a method would not be thought of at all. Not to mention anything else, just the flaw in the 5 elements killing formation has not yet been discovered by any alchemist master in the entire alchemy world on the continent. However, Jason knew it so clearly that it made Rongsheng's heart full of shock. How's it going, Rongsheng? Do you have any other questions? Jason asked Rongsheng with a smile while erasing the 5 elements killing formation on the ground. No, thank you, Master Jason. Rongsheng shook his head, he had figured out all the principles. Haha, that's good. Jason smiled. The reason why he told Rongsheng this was because he saw that Rongsheng's love for alchemy was just like his love for elixirs. A true master of alchemy, for such a person, Jason had no reason to hide his knowledge. Now that the problem of Rongsheng has been solved, Jason doesn't want to stay here anymore when he looks at the crowd surrounding him. But before he can say anything, he suddenly sees that Rongsheng is actually facing the crowd in full view of the crowd. He knelt down on one knee. Master Jason, please accept me as your disciple. What are you doing? Jason suddenly felt a little confused. This melting saint was too easily excited. He just introduced a few casually. Just a sentence of alchemy knowledge made him want to worship him as his teacher. If he told some alchemy knowledge of later generations, wouldn't he get a heart attack on the spot? If I had known, I wouldn't have said anything. Jason couldn't help but touch his nose, with a wry smile on his face. Rongsheng's apprenticeship was like a thunder blast out of thin air. In an instant, the entire competition ground suddenly became quiet. Almost everyone's eyes fell on the 2 men who were still alive and dead. The duel players, from the audience to the players, from the people in the Northwest to the people in the Kamikaze Empire, were all stunned at this moment, and the expressions on everyone's faces were full of sluggishness and shock. Is this Rongsheng crazy? He actually became a disciple of Jason, are you kidding me? That Jason is a 6th-level high-level spiritual master, and Rongsheng himself is a 7th-level low-level imperial spiritual master. Now, the entire competition ground was surprisingly quiet. The audience forgot to talk. Everyone looked at the 2 people in shock. Even time forgot to flow at this moment. Everything seemed to be moving suddenly. It stopped for a while. Rongsheng, what are you doing? No one knew how long it had been until a doubtful and sullen voice came from the Kamikaze Empire's team, finally ending this strange silence. Break in. A leader of the Kamikaze Empire looked at Rongxing with a sullen face. In front of a large crowd and in full view of the public, a player from his Kamikaze Empire actually became a disciple of the opponent after losing to the opponent in the game. If such a thing were to be spread, where should he put the face of the Kamikaze Empire? By then, his Kamikaze Empire will become the laughingstock of the entire continent. This is simply a big fucking joke. However, in the face of the angry shouts from the leader of the Kamikaze Empire, Melting Saint remained unmoved, kneeling on one knee and looking at Jason longingly. Ever since he was a child, Rongxing has been extremely fond of alchemy. In his life, alchemy is everything to him. For the sake of alchemy, he is even willing to give everything. It is this spirit of his that makes him, at the age of more than 20 years old, he achieved the title of a 6th-level advanced alchemist master. Alchemy is an extremely remote subject. Compared with the geniuses who study alchemy on the mainland, there may not be 1 in 100 geniuses who study elixir. Moreover, alchemy is also more difficult than elixir. In the Stern continent, the 6th-level master of elixirs in his 20s is already an astonishing genius, but Rongxing has practiced alchemy to the 6th level. You can know how much he has paid for this. It can be said that alchemy is his life. Jason's simple description before and his unique drawing of the 5 elements killing formation are completely different from ordinary alchemy. In the eyes of ordinary people, it may not be considered much, but in the heart of Melting Saint, it is shocking. The stormy sea made him unable to control himself for a long time. Seeing the whole thing at a glance, as an alchemy master, Rongxing felt Jason's terrifying alchemy skills from Jason's previous short story, which was why the previous scene happened. Rongxing, please get up quickly. Feeling the surprised gazes of everyone around him, Jason had a wry smile on his face and hurriedly helped Rongxing up and said, "What do I know about my attainments in alchemy?" "Even worse than you, don't mention apprenticeship or anything like that." If Jason were a real alchemist master, perhaps he would agree to the apprenticeship of Rongxing. After all, the alchemy talent shown by Rongxing, and a love for alchemy that was irresistible. But Jason is not. The reason why he has such high attainments in alchemy is because he came from 3,000 years later and knows a lot of alchemical knowledge that is far ahead of this era. For example, the flaw in the previous 5 elements killing formation was researched by an alchemist master about 1,000 years later. It caused a huge revolution in the alchemy world at that time. As a master of elixirs, Jason, you also have a good understanding of this, so you can make a quick judgment. It can be said that what Jason conquered the Molten Saint before was not his own alchemical attainments, but the summaries of countless wise men and geniuses over the past 3,000 years. If you ask about Jason's own alchemical attainments, even though he was as a 9th-level elixir master, he also has a deep understanding of alchemy. But in fact, Jason is not a professional alchemist master after all, and he is about the same level as the Melting Saint. Therefore, Jason, who did not want to mislead others, could not accept Rongxing as his disciple, otherwise, he would destroy Rongxing. He has more knowledge than Rongxing, that is, more than 3,000 years of knowledge. You can discuss and study with him, but you can never accept him as a disciple. After hearing Jason's answer, in front of the crowd, Rongxing's face was full of frustration, but then, his eyes became extremely determined. "Master Jason, thank you for your advice today." He stood up and bowed deeply to Jason. "I know that the reason why you don't accept me as your disciple today is because my attainments in alchemy are not good enough. If it's not enough, I will continue to work hard until one day you can accept me as your disciple." Rongxing's tone was extremely firm, making people feel a strong belief. Faced with the idea of Melting Saint, Jason was completely speechless.